What is up, everybody? It's Animac here for AnimeUproar, and in this video I will be breaking down the life of Zenitsu, a man who started out as a wannabe womanizer crybaby with a tragic past, but ended up becoming a true badass Chad and a faithful husband, father, and family man. A lot of people hated Zenitsu at the beginning of the series, and they found him to be extremely annoying, but I always kinda liked him and I thought he was funny. Well, my trust in Zenitsu paid off because his heroic struggle against loss, betrayal, demons, and his own insecurities made for an absolutely electrifying character progression, so let's get into it. If you guys enjoy our Demon Slayer content and you want us to keep it going, just leave a quick like and comment. It only takes a second, but it helps with the YouTube algorithm. And if you're new to the channel, or maybe you watch our videos, but you just haven't taken the time to subscribe yet, do me a quick favor and make this the video that you subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. It is a completely free but also very important way of directly supporting this channel. You can also hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at AnimeUproar. Finally, this video will contain Demon Slayer manga spoilers. All the information about Zenitsu's life from the manga is fair game, so please proceed with caution, you have been warned. When we first meet Zenitsu, he is one of the 4 people who passed the final selection exam for joining the Demon Slayer Corps, along with Tanjiro, Kanao, and Genya. However, instead of being happy that he was one of the few who managed to successfully pass such a difficult trial, Zenitsu was actually scared about the many dangers that he will now face in his new life as a Demon Slayer. He also seems desperate to find a wife before he potentially loses his life on his first mission, so he tries to beg a random girl to marry him, forcing Tanjiro to intervene. Zenitsu then asks Tanjiro to protect him until he can find a wife and get married. Despite being only like 16 years old at this point, Zenitsu is obsessed with marriage because he really seems to think that getting married and starting a family is an essential part of life. And so he doesn't want to die before he has a chance to fulfill that goal. At this point, Tanjiro is wondering what most of us are wondering. If Zenitsu is so scared of dying, then why would he decide to become a Demon Slayer in the first place? Zenitsu explains that sometime in the past, he was tricked by a woman whom he was infatuated with, and she basically conned him out of all his money. He ended up in massive debt, and he was in big trouble until an old man took pity on him and paid his debt off. This old man was Jigoro Kuwaijima, the former Thunder Hashira. After paying off Zenitsu's debt, he trained him in the art of swordsmanship, and he was the only person who ever saw any potential in him. Zenitsu grew up without his parents, and he didn't really have anyone in his life who cared about him. He had no guidance or affection in life. Everyone he knew gave up on him, except for Jigoro. So even though Zenitsu is clearly scared of becoming a Demon Slayer, he wants to honor his master Jigoro by doing that which he was trained to do, protect humanity from demons. I can definitely understand why people disliked Zenitsu at first, although as I said, I always thought that he was funny. Compared to all the other Demon Slayers who are all strong and seemingly fearless, Zenitsu looks like a total schmuck. He appears to be more interested in finding a wife than doing his duty. He's constantly complaining about the dangerous nature of their missions, and he just seems to be weak and useless compared to everyone else. But during the Tsuzumi Mansion arc, we got our first real insight into Zenitsu's true potential and his latent badassery. At one point, Zenitsu and a young boy named Shoichi are ambushed by a demon inside the mansion. Zenitsu is so frightened that he seemingly passes out from fear, and that seems pretty consistent with the type of behavior that we've seen from him up to this point. But then something unexpected happens. As the demon begins his attack, Zenitsu suddenly cuts off the demon's tongue and then absolutely wrecks him. This was such an epic moment that demonstrated Zenitsu's true potential, but there's just one problem. Zenitsu defeated the demon while sleepwalking, so he wasn't actually conscious when he did it. When he wakes up, Zenitsu has no idea what happened, and he thinks that the boy, Shoichi, was the one who defeated the demon. From this scene, we see that Zenitsu really does have incredible talent and potential as a Demon Slayer, but it is all buried within his subconscious. At this point in the story, he simply cannot unlock that potential when he is actually awake. He still has too much baggage and too many insecurities, but as the story continues, so does the progression of Zenitsu's character. In chapter 33, we get a brief flashback to Zenitsu's training with Jigoro, and we see that despite being a full-time scaredy-pants crybaby, Zenitsu really did want to live up to his master's expectations, and he trained extremely hard every single day. not just with Jigoro, but even alone on his own time. He trained to the point that he barely even slept. One day, he decided to climb up a tree to hide from his master because he thought that if he trains anymore, he will actually die. While he was up on that tree, the tree got struck by lightning, and that is when Zenitsu's naturally dark hair turned blonde. So yeah, Zenitsu's plan to escape the world by climbing up a tree didn't exactly work out. But during that flashback, we did learn another thing. Jigoro really cared about Zenitsu, not just as a disciple, but it was almost like Zenitsu was his own grandson, and Zenitsu even called him Gramps. Jigoro was basically the only family that Zenitsu had ever known, and this bond that he had with his master would play a massive role in Zenitsu's character development throughout the entirety of the story. This flashback also reveals that during his training, Zenitsu only ever managed to learn one Breath of Thunder form. Even though there are 6 known forms at this point in time, Zenitsu could never learn more than the first form of thunder breathing called Thunderclap and Flash. But instead of berating him, his master Jigoro understood Zenitsu's predicament, and he told him that if he could only do one form, then he should do his best to master it completely. He should put all of his effort into developing the perfect first form and become better at it than anyone else, and that is exactly what Zenitsu strived to do. Another thing that is revealed around the same time is that Zenitsu wasn't Jigoro's only disciple. Jigoro had a second disciple whose name is later revealed to be Kaigaku. Kaigaku was an orphan who had a very tough childhood, and he was forced to become a thief and steal scraps of food just to survive. Eventually, he was taken in by Jigoro and trained to use thunder breathing just like Zenitsu, except Kaigaku was able to master all of the forms, and he was seemingly far better suited to become Jigoro's successor than Zenitsu. No one believed this more fervently than Kaigaku himself, and he hated Zenitsu for being weak, cowardly, and overly familiar with their master. Kaigaku often mocked and bullied Zenitsu during their training, and for his part, Zenitsu hated Kaigaku, but he also respected his impressive strength and swordsmanship skills. The fact that Jigoro wanted both of his disciples to become his successors infuriated Kaigaku, who believed that he was far superior to Zenitsu. And the more we learn about Kaigaku, the more obvious it becomes that he is a terrible person. Kaigaku's rough childhood made him value his own survival over everything else, and he was even willing to sacrifice the lives of many other innocent people in order to preserve his own life. He was also prepared to shamelessly beg and grovel for his life if he believed that the situation required it. So any talk of him being an honorable and righteous successor of Jigoro was never anything more than talk. Eventually, Kaigaku's drive for self-preservation at all cost drove him to willingly become a demon, and he would ultimately attain the rank of Upper Moon 6 after the death of Daki and Gyutaru. The fact that one of his disciples went on to become a demon was so humiliating to Jigoro that he committed seppuku with no second in order to atone for his disciple's sins. This revelation absolutely broke Zenitsu's heart, and he vowed to defeat Kaigaku. Zenitsu ultimately gets his chance to confront his greatest rival inside the Infinity Castle, and having honed his skills and confidence for many chapters, and also having brought his subconscious potential into his waking reality, Zenitsu manages to defeat Kaigaku using a new form of thunder breathing called Honoi Kazuchi no Kami. At first, Kaigaku thinks that Jigoro had secretly taught this technique to Zenitsu only because he liked Zenitsu more than him. But Zenitsu says that no, he invented this new 7th form himself because he wanted to be able to fight alongside Kaigaku as his equal. As Kaigaku dies and Zenitsu loses consciousness, Zenitsu suddenly finds himself in front of his old master, Jigoro. At this point, Zenitsu is presumably on the doorway to the afterlife, and so he is able to see his master on the other shore of a river. Zenitsu calls out to his master and he apologizes for how things turned out. He blames himself for the fact that Kaigaku became a demon, and he wonders whether Jigoro hates him now. But Jigoro merely looks at Zenitsu with tears in his eyes and says, "I'm proud of you." What a touching moment, and what a fascinating comparison we can make between Zenitsu and Kaigaku. On the surface, these guys had a very similar life. Both were essentially orphans with no one to turn to, and Jigoro became the closest thing that both of them had to family. But while Kaigaku let his harsh past define him, and while he dedicated his entire life to his own self-preservation no matter the cost, Zenitsu recognized that despite his past hardships, there were people out there like Jigoro who truly loved and accepted him. And so, even though he was a scared crybaby who wanted nothing more than a safe and normal life, Zenitsu knew that there were more important things out there than just preserving his own life. And he knew that there were other people out there who were worth risking his life for. Meanwhile, Kaigaku was arrogant, selfish, and obsessed with his own power and preservation, and so he could never look past his own narrow interests. Even after he found someone who genuinely cared for him like Jigoro, he could never be happy because he always wanted more power and more recognition. This dichotomy between Kaigaku and Zenitsu, and the duality of Zenitsu's cowardly and yet honorable character, make Zenitsu's ultimate character progression that much better. He didn't start out strong or brave. He was scared, he was weak, and he just wanted to run away and hide, but he didn't. He learned to push through the fear and the pain in order to become a truly admirable warrior, and that is why I absolutely love him as a character. And as far as his whole wannabe womanizer thing is concerned, I think that his character development in that sphere of his personality is also remarkable. He starts off so desperate to find a wife that he's willing to ask a random girl on the street to marry him. But once he meets Nezuko and develops feelings for her, his womanizing tendencies slowly dissipate. Whereas most people were absolutely furious to learn that Tanjiro was trying to protect his demon sister, Zenitsu was quick to accept Nezuko, and he did his best to protect her despite the fact that she was a demon and he was a demon slayer. I think that's an important aspect of Zenitsu's character that we can't overlook. Despite being taught to fear and hate all demons for his entire life, Zenitsu didn't give in to fear and hate when it came to Nezuko. He gave her a chance, he took time to know her, and eventually he developed feelings for her and even fought to protect her. He demonstrated his respect for Nezuko many times throughout the story, and he eventually marries her, has children with her, and becomes a committed husband, father, and family man. He completely abandons all of his wannabe womanizing as soon as he finds the right person, and he eventually shows himself to be a true woman respecter. I mean, don't forget that even back in the entertainment district, long before his character fully developed, Zenitsu was willing to stand up to Daki, an upper demon moon, in order to protect one of the female servants that Daki had been abusing. Zenitsu took a massive beating because he wanted to protect this girl that he had only just met, but he still did it because it was the right thing to do. And that is the story of Zenitsu. He is often scared, he is often insecure, and he often wants to run away, but he pushes through the fear and he does the right thing in the end. That is why I think he's a great character, a true hero, and an admirable demon slayer. Oh, and he's also the one who wrote down the exploits of the Demon Slayer Corps during their fight with Muzan. If he hadn't written that book, those of us who live in modern times never would have known about the Demon Slayer story. So yeah, Zenitsu is kind of a big deal. Let me know what you guys think about Zenitsu and his character progression down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this Demon Slayer video and you want us to keep it going, just leave a quick like and comment. It only takes a second, but it really helps with the YouTube algorithm. And if you're new to the channel, or maybe you watch our videos but you just haven't taken the time to subscribe yet, make this the video that you subscribe and hit that notification bell to turn on all notifications. You really have to go through the trouble of subscribing, hitting that bell, and then selecting the option that says all. If you don't do that, you're still gonna miss a ton of our videos even if you are subscribed. It's just how YouTube works. You can also hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at AnimeUproar. I want to give a quick thank you to all of our AnimeUproar patrons for making videos like this one possible. Special thank you to Alpha Sigma and Kyle Salisbury. These guys are absolute mad lads and disciples of Lord Twigo himself. And I can't forget all of our The One tier patrons, the ones who rise above all other clans, including Ingrata, Aljatal, Pate Hefa, the Red-Haired Fox, Hinokami and Water, The Toasted Chi, Corey McGowan, The Spike, Lonely Dakar, Dylan Isidore, Spidey Life Tunnel, Tungsten Tarkus, Big Buddhist, Jeremy Cummings, and Che Whitley. Finally, thank you also to our Pro Hero tier patrons, including the one and only Gilgamesh, Steelers, Angel Cruz, Very Gucci, Alicia Octor, Bonnie Parks, Joanne Garcia, Fatboy Games, Kaido Might Be a Duck, Jessica Rabbit, Jeremy Phillips, Ali Vania, Temple, King Matthew, and Demetrius Water. If you guys enjoy our videos and you feel that they provide value for you, consider supporting us on Patreon. Even a single dollar will give you access to our Patreon-exclusive Discord, and your name will appear in our videos along with these amazing people. Oh, and if you don't have a Patreon account, becoming a YouTube channel member gives you the same perks. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, see ya, Space Cowboys!